Hello and welcome to the Anime Reviewers. I'm Apollo.
I'm Zach.
I'm Matt.
And today we're reviewing Dr. Stone, Episode 3. So, I guess, first of all, overall impressions.
I thought it was an okay episode. It's definitely the weaker of the first three, in my opinion. It's definitely setting up the combat with the coming combat with the main antagonist, Tsukasa. Thank you. So I think that's okay, but I think in comparison to the first episode, which had a lot of information and it felt very long. Mm-hmm. Worth it, but felt long. Second episode, which was a bit more about the characters themselves, which I thought was really well done. This one it's a plot setup, and that's kind of it. It's a plot setup.
That was like my main reaction to this episode. Was something similar where it was so sad. It's such setup that if it was the first it's the first it would be the first it would be like you're getting one more chance after this. If this next episode isn't interesting and continues to be this, because the first two episodes are great and really made me excited to watch. But this episode kind of takes that away because there's certain points in it that really do break my enjoyment of the show, and it takes it away it takes it away from me.
Yeah, similar kind of thing for me. The first episode I had 3 pages of notes for. Second episode I had a page. This episode I had a paragraph. That really does summarize it. It's basically the race is on, and that's it.
Yeah.
Aside from that, any standout moments though?
I think probably the biggest standout and the strongest moment for me in the show was right towards the beginning, when they're Taiju. Taiju mentions to Senku about getting more what they refer to as miracle fluid, which is the tool, or is the nitric acid used in creating the rejuvenation elixir that they make to rejuvenate people. And this conversation happens immediately after Senku and Tsukasa have their conversation, because the first episode picks up right after, or this episode, sorry, not first episode. This episode picks up right after the end of the second one, where Tsukasa just killed someone in front of Senku. Mm-hmm. I think the most standout point is they get back to the village and they're in the process of Senku's in the process of refining the fluid. Mm-hmm. At least I think that's what he's doing, because you see him pour it into some sort of filtration system. He's filtering it at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And he all of a sudden says, "Oh, we don't have enough fluid. You need to go get more, Big O." And Taiju goes, "Okay," and goes to take off, and Tsukasa stops him and says, "I'm the fastest one. Why don't I go get it for us? Why don't I go get it for you? You just need to tell me where miracle fluid is. Where do you find it?" I think that's the biggest standout point, because Senku is yes, he fell for the bait. Tsukasa takes off bat out of hell, because he's Superman of the stone world, basically. And Senku immediately makes the actual miracle fluid, and he's like, "Okay, let's revive her now because we gotta go." Yeah. I think that's the big standout point, is the fact that he tricks Tsukasa into... He baits Tsukasa into doing something he wants.
Yeah. Since he realized that Taiju already gave up the secret of the fluid, okay, he knows that there's a secret to it, but he doesn't know the refining method, and he's going to get the information where, but this will buy us time. Yeah.
Well, for me, there was the only standout moment, because this episode really, it went by fast, which is something that I compliment, but the only moment that I really can think of, and that was at all memorable for me, was the part where was actually after that, when they have to fight, when they fight him and he pulls out the crossbow that he'd been working on. He says,
when Senku does.
yeah, Senku pulls out the crossbow, and because then finally, like Tsukasa knows where everything is, and Taiju like won't fight. He'll like defend everyone from him, but he won't fight him, and takes a pretty big hit from him and gets knocked out, and just him making a plan of like, okay, we're gonna fake where we're escaping and make it hard for him to track us down, because he consistently shows in this episode how he is more clever than Tsukasa. Tsukasa's smart, but he's not as clever. They have that real, that's another slight moment that I remember, is that parallel between when he reveals where he's going to make gunpowder, and when Tsukasa figures out that he's going to make gunpowder, because he's sitting there pondering it. That's really the only two, let's say, 1.5 moments that stick out to me, because those moments are attached, but they're still far enough apart to where you can say they're two different moments.
I'd like to have with that is you're saying that he's more clever than Tsukasa. Tsukasa, seeing the bait left behind and like, oh, they're trying to do a distraction, immediately figured out what the plan actually was.
But not where they're going.
He did. He got the name of the place immediately.
It took him a minute of pondering.
Well,
he figured out that Senku wasn't someone to run.
Mm-hmm.
So he was trying to figure out, okay, you're not someone to run. What would be your plan? Oh, weapons of science. That would be the only thing in this type of stone world that could stop me. Where would you go? And it does take him a few moments to get there. So he doesn't immediately jump to it. It does take him a moment.
But within minutes
within minutes,
hours of their travel.
Well, that's
exactly.
Well, it's not minutes, because the way they parallel it is you see the background of him changing and where he's actually walking and following them. Like, they show him actually like kind of figuring things out in the sky above him changes. It's always an upshot, or whatever the heck it's called, where the angle is showing him up, and you're just seeing the sky in his face when he's pondering to himself and narrating his thoughts, or not narrating, but saying his thoughts. And when Senku's describing everything and they're talking about it, and they have that parallel of him discovering where they went. There really is that separation of and you see that there's some time went by that he had to sit there and think and look at all the clues and how things slightly change.
Fair enough, but I think that saying that Senku's more clever isn't exactly accurate, because from that bit of evidence he did figure out their plan and their destination.
I did. So that's the fun part about separate interpretations of those moments, because if we ever rewatch those episodes, we'll be able to tell.
Yeah. But yes, aside from that, they mentioned the rejuvenating properties of the elixir, whatever they use, because the girl...
No, it's called...
the miracle fluid.
Miracle fluid.
Yeah. That's what they refer to it. It's just miracle fluid.
I think they call it whatever.
Anyways, so the girl, after having been depetrified, still had a bit on her foot, which had been giving her a bit of discomfort. They poured a bit more on, it broke free, and she felt a lot better afterwards.
Yeah, she comments that even the pain went away.
Yes.
And I like how they have the little discussion about the cracks and how the flu, because he's like, oh, it heals them, and then he's like, well, it does, but it doesn't heal you completely, because we still have these cracks, you see.
Yep.
Where she finally explains those cracks.
Senku explains the fact that the miracle fluid isn't it's not like actual rejuvenation. It's more like because he akins the stone shape to like some form of essentially cryostasis. That switches everyone's molecular structure to basically a static form, and the miracle fluid, as they refer to it, reverts it back. And what the miracle fluid is actually doing, it's not a rejuvenation thing as so much as it's repairing the cracks in their bodies, which is why they can still survive, even though they have, Senku has 2 massive cracks down the front of his face. I think Taiju has one down here and one here. Tsukasa's is like a spiral around his face. And what was the girl's name again?
Getting my note. Yuzuriha.
Yuzuriha, yes. has
The
a
most said name in the show.
Yeah, it's the only name that's said the most in the show, and I immediately forgot it. But
It's
she has
4 syllables.
yeah, it's she has the spiral on the arm.
Yeah. Everyone else is 3 or less. Hers is 4 syllables. That's why I forget. That's my defense. Anyways.
Out of 4 people, there's Tsukasa, Taiju, and Senku. The 2 syllables and 3 syllables, so she's 4.
Yeah. She's the most complicated name.
So far.
Standard technological nitpick, the crossbow. I don't believe he could have made one by hand that would fire an arrow that fast, but whatever.
Oh yeah, because he 200 meters per second, I think is what
Yeah.
he said. Yeah.
And that's over 600 feet per second. That is a pretty fast arrow for all things considered. He made it out of wood. It's a short stroke draw crossbow.
Yeah.
That's a bit much for that device. Especially since he did not have any cranks or things to...
And that guy's super powerful and whatnot, but that's one heck of a speed for him to be able to catch.
Oh yeah, him catching it out of the air
Yeah.
and just like
Because if you try, you couldn't catch a bullet like this.
yeah.
Even if you could perceive it moving at you, the timing would still be there. Not including the fact that the physics of it would still just tear through your
Oh yeah.
Well, he did catch...
Yeah,
what
he did what you're actually supposed to do and push it, like sidestep it and catch it. Well,
And it
he
is
didn't dodge- he
slower.
didn't dodge it, though.
It is technically slower than a modern compound bow.
Oh,
I just don't believe that wooden crossbow Senku made up will have that power.
well, I don't believe they're a disease. They'll turn people into statues.
Well, I mean, of course not. It's not a natural disease. Someone tested it on birds first. And then once they got it right, they did it to people.
The
Oh,
show does in
God.
fact imply that.
Oh God.
Think about it. The birds turn to stone first, then people.
It was experimentation. It wasn't just suddenly...
And they started to, and wow, and that's actually an interesting parallel when they first experiment, they're experimenting on birds first.
Yep.
That implies that Senku in some way knew that may have known that those were the first ones in stone and were popping up.
I mean, it was only like a couple days
I
before the
don't think it
petrification.
I don't think it dawned on Senku until after he woke up though.
Yeah.
Well, he did have all that time to think because he
Yeah.
said he was conscious the whole time counting.
Which is just insane.
Yes.
But he's a mad scientist. He, like I said, he's Rick if he was sane.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I do believe he could count. I just won't believe that count would be accurate.
Yeah.
But, so, other than that,
He's mathematically smart enough
the-
to know what his delay would be, so he could get closest to the number.
Other points of note. The bronze statue of the Great Buddha surviving 3,700 years.
Yeah.
Completely practical. I mean,
Yep.
they found Chinese swords made of bronze that are over 3,000 years old.
There are
Yeah.
statues of Buddha that
Yeah, there are.
that
Yeah.
old, I believe.
So another 3,000
Or
times
like
that
at least,
much.
I don't know if it's 3,000 years because I don't know how old Buddhism is, let alone the statues of Buddhism. But I know there's some really old statues of Buddha
Yeah.
found in it's like the jungles of like Vietnam.
Yeah.
But what that helped with in this episode, for plot point wise, was that gave them the exact location in Japan they were at, which then helps with navigating. Because
Oh,
Senku
yeah.
was trying to use a sextant and was having trouble because it's such a primitive form of navigation, and they didn't know their original location relating to everything else.
Yeah,
the funny
yeah.
thing
Without I think he says without latitude and longitude, this is.
They do have an
Borderline
idea of
worthless.
where they're at because of relative position to Mount Fuji, though.
But that was once they got there that they found Mount Fuji and
Yeah,
settled
then,
down the people.
but I thought they found Mount Fuji before they found the Buddha statue.
No.
No? Because he used the Buddha
It
statue
might
to
have
make
been
mirrors.
But that's...
No. It's unclear whether he uses it to make mirrors.
That's
To-
my problem with the episode. It's not memorable.
To be fair, it's not. He said it dawns on him that the Buddha statue
Three
is
people who
bronze.
just watched the show.
Yes. It dawns on him that the Buddha statue is made of bronze, and which he can then use to make mirrors, and then goes to like break off some of the bronze, and it's like off screen, and Taiju's like, "You can't do this, you heathen."
Yeah.
And Senku being Senku and not really caring is like, "But I can make like." He's talking about how you can make a mirror and like, "Get off me, you big oaf! It doesn't matter."
And you know what? For the small amount of bronze you need, that's not really a bad use.
No, not really. Especially since like this particular statue, like I think it's
We're gonna dive into a
borderline
big-time nerd mode discussion here.
borderline one whole
We
side
can
is
dive
like
into
torn
that.
apart
Yeah.
or like degraded and
Yeah.
falling
I mean,
apart.
you
So
can pick
you can,
pieces off.
yeah, absolutely.
Anyways,
It depends on how the chemical structure,
But
or
yeah,
whatever the structure of the statue.
They
how it
don't
breaks
mention
up.
seeing Mount Fuji until they get to the hot springs in Hokane.
and the last thing with the bronze, which was how they spotted it, was that the copper ions leak into the ground, kill the plants, make it so it's a big bare patch that can be spotted from a long distance away. And that's what helped them locate that statue.
Yep.
Or the girl, Yuzuriha, specifically, was the one who recognized that.
Yeah, because they mentioned that they should be rough. I forget what region of Japan that they're supposed to roughly be in when they're using the sextant. But Yuzuriha sort of looks around and then immediately bolts off towards it.
Didn't support any case that this episode isn't memorable.
Yeah.
And then, final point.
Well, I'm also not familiar with Japan well enough to be like,
Yeah.
I know exactly where these places are. You
Yeah,
know?
those are kind of just names.
Yeah.
Oh, but I actually know the territories of Japan fairly well from the nerd games I play that are like that their dates like are very specific on their like they at least take the names
Yeah.
and like those because that area is familiar. I think that's even the hot springs that they went to in several like animes where they've gone to hot springs. And,
Yeah,
like,
it's a pretty well-known hot spring location, Hokane.
Mhm.
So it's
And the last point with
you just
Hokage.
remembered the name Hokage.
Yep.
I remember the Hokane hot springs location because that's at the end. I'm talking about where they found the Buddha statue.
Oh yeah.
That location I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I get that. Okay, I thought you were talking about hot spring.
No.
I get that at this house.
Yep. And the big point was finding the hot springs gets them sulfur, which then can be used to make gunpowder.
Yeah.
And that's really the last key point.
Yeah, that's where it ends. Is
Yeah, but that's where I'm saying that actually helps me support what I said about how that does because he doesn't realize they're looking for gunpowder because he's sitting there trying to figure out what they're doing, and he doesn't realize it's gunpowder until he reveals we're going here to get sulfur to make black powder.
Though I do think that there's a little bit of a time difference there. Like, they're trying to portray him as being that far behind. It's more that they wanted the audience to see Senku figuring it out and travel along with him, and then cut back to realizing that he was figuring it out.
yeah, he's only like a day behind them. Because after the fight, he walks away because Senku goes, "Oh, well, he's going to be laid up for several days."
Yep. And he still had time crushing statues during that as well.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, that was actually the only another memorable scene that's just kind of tragic is when there's this family with and he sees them and his kids were happy, like kind of disproving that all these adults are like really terrible, and shows how he's just completely indiscriminate on his destruction of adults. Where these kids are happy and they're playing with their parents.
And even their parents are smiling.
Yeah.
Or at least it appears to be.
Yeah, and then he breaks and smashes them and puts seashell necklaces on them, which it harkens back to the second episode when it's a powerful thing and it just shows like what kind of character he is. Like,
Yeah.
Which is one of the best. Like that moment is super memorable because of how powerful that scene is and how it like affected me because I felt bad. And normally I'm kind of indifferent on those kind of things.
And that actually kind of makes me then wonder, though I don't know if we'll ever get backstory on Tsukasa, did he have a kind of normal childhood? Did he ever have supporting parents? Because that would heavily influence that.
I don't know. He got beat up by a drunken sailor.
Yeah, but that's
or drunken
sailor.
fisherman.
A drunken fisherman, and there's the implication that his sister didn't make it through surgery.
Yeah.
They don't expressly state it, but there is that implication.
But we have no idea where the parents played into that, and that's why I'm wondering a lack of support there would then mean that why he doesn't recognize that the children are actually happy with the parents.
Yeah. Because he was searching for seashells on the shore. On the seashore. Seashells on the seashore. Goddamn dinosaur hunters. Okay. That was something that was a fascinating part, but it like I don't see that. I think that's way too speculative, personally.
It is. That was just something that made me wonder.
Oh well, that's the one thing that is actually that's really cool.
Other than that, I guess final thoughts, guys. Because I think it's pretty much been said through this.
Yeah, I
episode.
mean, I got nothing more to say from what I've added. Like, even from the beginning, it's a setup episode.
Yeah. It's necessary build-up, but man, I wish they could have put more into it.
Yeah.
All right, well, if that...
Yeah, the only thing that I could say in that is there was just that, like I said, it's just not. I just want to I like it. This is the episode. I only give it one. Like I would only give it one more chance. If the next episode isn't good, I would stop watching the show. Even though the other two episodes were awesome, that episode was disappointing enough in the sense of like, it's just gonna go into a hole. Like they're diving into a hole that they're just gonna be pushing everything through, and it's not for like I'd be afraid of that. But it's like you got one more episode for me to where I might watch it again later. I might not.
Yeah, that's actually a fair point. If you're following the Standard Anime Rule of 3, then this would be the weakest episode, and you
Absolutely.
might not come back to it after that.
I will say though, I have watched Beyond this episode personally.
Mm-hmm.
I would at bare minimum recommend giving it the 4th episode.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Like,
Yeah,
this unfortunately, like we've said, this is the weakest episode. It's the plot setup episode. The 4th episode, I personally feel does sort of get back into the way the first two were, where there's a lot more going on.
Yeah, that's one of my goals. Is any episode we have, I specifically, if it's not a show I haven't watched, I'm specifically trying just to watch what's relevant. So I'm giving the freshest opinion of it, to have that perspective of it.
Yeah, no, I'm and that's great and all. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to spoil anything about the
Oh,
fourth,
yeah, well,
fourth
yeah, I
episode
know,
whatsoever.
I know. Yeah,
I'm just recommending that you do give it that 4th one personally. Like, I feel you will feel it goes.
Oh,
back
I
the way
said
the first
that
two.
I said that this episode is good enough to make me watch the 4th episode. But if that 4th episode is as disappointing as this episode, I wouldn't keep going. This episode was good enough because it's good story building.
Yeah, okay.
It has all of the great elements the previous episode had. It was just it wasn't memorable.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Game of Thrones season 5 and 6 and 7. They're good but not memorable.
Yeah.
It seems like it could be slipping into something scary, or not scary, but something I won't enjoy.
Yep. And so, as someone who hasn't seen further in your case, it's good also that we're kind of here to go, no, it gets way better than this also.
It does.
Everyone dies.
But aside from that, yeah.
Besides that, Gurren Lagann's a pretty cool anime too. Even though the part where the main character dies is like ruins it, in my opinion. Let's talk about that when we talk about that show.
And then they go into space with the giant transforming spaceship.
And all the drills.
How do you screw up giant robots? I dig giant robots.
All right, let's circle back.
But yeah, so again, for a first 3, this would be the weakest episode of those 3. I would advise anyone that if the first 2 episodes caught your interest, definitely keep watching them because it gets a lot better than this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I still would certainly recommend you keep going, even if you have feelings similar to mine.
Well, if that's all, then I guess we can wrap this episode up.
Yep. Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed the video.
If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And please follow us on Twitter.